exciting. And like I said yesterday, this whole idea of Afro sport is with the perception or the mindset of bringing the best brains across various sectors of the sports ecosystem across the continent under one roof, have very challenging conversations, ask very tough questions, and more importantly, network so that when we have the problem, we know who to contact for solutions. So I'm happy you are here, and I'm delighted that today is the second day that we are going to be crowning the Afro Sports event. Meanwhile, we'll just go back on what happened yesterday. Just have a little, talk of some of the things that happened. I'll run you by some of the topics, the key ones that interested many people. And today is not going to be any different because today also promises to bring up some very exciting ones. We spoke about the integrity of the sports, safeguarding it. Also spoke about fan engagement yesterday on a very lovely panel. And there was also the talk for sports for development. Today, there's plenty more to come, which I will tell you about. So yesterday, we did something which has become a tradition for Afro sports. Networking is important. The more reason why I'll go back to what I did yesterday, that say welcome in your local dialect to somebody sitting by you, in front of you, or behind you, and break the ice for communication. Senzo says Akwaba. Prince got that one through. But how does he then say Akwaba from his side? Right. Anyway, I am from the Volta region of Ghana. I'm from Kweje, and from my end, we say Wezo, which also means welcome. But popularly in Ghana, we say Akwaba. And so, yeah, you're very much welcome to the conference today. It's going to be very packed and exciting. Anyway, let me see by hand those of you who were in the lessons learned from the FIFA World Cup 2022. Fantastic. And those as well who went to the lecture for the TikTok, the content creation. How about commercialization of women's sports? Brilliant stuff. All right, so I think everybody got a fair share of the knowledge that we were sharing, which is very crucial. Anyway, I just wanted us to move straight into talking, but I can't do that if my president and CEO doesn't give us the welcome address. So ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome to the podium today again, the CEO of African Sports Center, Mr. Prince Nakotutai.
Hello. Yeah. Good morning, everyone. I know it's been a hectic span of few hours for all of us, so I'm very happy to see all of you here again today. The president or the chairman of the Ghana League Clubs Association, Mr. Kujo Fiano, the advisory board of the Afro Sports Summit, members of the diplomatic corps, representatives from leagues, clubs, federations, academia, and media, colleagues of the African sports industry, ladies and gentlemen. I'm happy to welcome you all to day 2 of the Afro Sports Summit here in Accra, Ghana. It was indeed an impactful day 1 yesterday, and we absolutely look forward to building on this for an even more productive time today. From learning about the need for more stakeholder engagement to enhance sport as a tool for socio-economic development, discussing issues of sports governance, highlighting some opportunities and challenges of fan engagement, it was no doubt a stretch of rich discussions and conversations. After lunch, we went into the second half of parallel sessions where the data research and technology roundtable discussions delved into some transformational opportunities for African sport properties. The session on commercializing of women's sports was as lively as ever, and I was particularly excited by the zeal and passion displayed by all, both speakers and guests. We also had the opportunity to learn about content creation in the TikTok workshop, while the talk on lessons learned from the 2022 World Cup in relation to how Africa can develop the next World Cup star was more than educative. Today, we delve into other topic areas, including preparing athletes for life after sport, driving legal excellence in gaming, esports, music, and entertainment, and contextualizing digital broadcast in Africa. There will also be a coaches forum, a sports tourism discussion, a basketball roundtable, a La Liga industry talk, and a catapult workshop on wearable technologies. I would like to highlight that the richness of this summit goes beyond these great talk sessions and workshops, and will thus urge all participants to explore other areas, including the exhibitions by player-athlete marketing platform Catch Me, sport technology giants Catapult, US-based educational institution Southern University Law Center, and the Ghana Tourism Authority. And in case you want to know where to find them, right out to your left. They are on this side of the stretch. Again, let's take advantage of this rich gathering of sports industry people to explore new connections and collaborations with people and also brands. At this moment, I would like to take up opportunity now to acknowledge the presence of my primary school teacher, who is also now a lecturer at the University of Education, Winneba, Dr. Anissa Champong. Can you give us a wave if you're in here? A round of applause for Dr. Anissa Champong. Thank you so much, sir. We hope that every participant in this summit explores and attains the full benefits of this gathering and leaves this summit re-energized, revitalized, and re-equipped for the development agenda of African sports and beyond. I wish us all a fruitful day 2 and a fruitful Afro Sports Summit conclusion today. Thank you.
Right. Thank you very much, Mr. President. Please give it up for him once again, Mr. Prince Nakotute. Well, now that he has opened the sessions or the day, I can go now and tell you how the day in itself is going to unfold. As Riley said, there was plenty for us to, deliberate on, discuss, ask questions, and speak about, and there is more coming up today. Let me just whet your appetite to some of those subject matters that will be discussed on the platform in other parallel classes as well. All right, so for day 2, we're going to have the first conversation really on the panel is going to be about education and post-career. We're talking about preparing for life after sport. Because we've seen it happening in many other continents. In more recent times, to be fair, on our own continent, where ex-elite athletes have got a line, they've got a path they follow post their career. But we're going to go a lot more into it. We want to see a lot more of our athletes go down that path. There's also going to be the driving legal excellence in gaming, esports, music, and entertainment. That is going to be hosted by the Southern University Law Center with their own panel. That's going to be an interesting one to get into because these days we've seen entertainment and sports and music go together, don't we? We saw the more recent Champions League final also have a kick-off bash. Burna Boy was there bouncing the whole place up, as it's been done for many years in the MLS and the NFL as well. So we'll see how that conversation can also be brought into the fore. Then we'll have to also have a very holistic discussion about how to put into context digital broadcasting in Africa, right? Is OTT a realistic, viable alternative for income? That is going to be another discussion. So that is what is going to be happening on the main stage for our first 3 sessions. But like we did yesterday, I'll leave you to decide where to go for our parallel class. And again, I don't envy you guys because some very mouth-watering topics are going to be coming up. So after the 3 sessions have been done here, after lunch, we'll break into those sessions. The first 2 that will be happening simultaneously would be the coaches forum, where the game module and the game module implementation is going to be discussed. Around the same time, or at the same time, sports tourism would also be discussed as to why is Africa marginalizing a powerful economic game changer when it comes to tourism. So those are going to be happening at the same time. After which, we'll have 3 different sessions happening. This room will host one, and the 2 other halls, which I'll tell you about in a jiffy, will host the others. There's going to be the driving socioeconomic development through basketball, also an industry talk by La Liga, building a football ecosystem. Then we'll also have Into the World of Wearable Technologies, a workshop by Catapult. I know by now you're scratching your head, you're not too sure where to be. Don't worry, by the time the first 3 sessions are done, I think you would have picked a place to be. How about also bouncing off all these classes and picking bits and pieces? You decide. But today is going to be slightly different. Unlike yesterday, where we used the main stage and one of the halls on my left outside, today, for the first 2 parallel sessions, we are going to use 2 halls outside. They've been named. There is the Johannesburg Hall and there's the Lagos Hall, right? Now, for those who would want to be in the parallel class, the class that is going to be speaking on the coaches forum, the game model implementation, that class is going to be happening in the Johannesburg Hall. And those who also want to have the sports tourism, they will be here on the main stage. Meanwhile, those who want to go into the industry talk where we're going to be talking about socioeconomic development through basketball, they would have to find themselves in the Lagos Hall. Don't worry, Ashes will be guiding you just to prep your mind. So just tell them I'm looking for Lagos Hall, Johannesburg, or if you like, the main stage, which is going to be here. So please, as the sessions go on, I'll keep updating you and reminding you of it. Again, there's also the exhibition center. Yesterday, I tried to play a game with the e-gamers, and I was shooting into the air, and I was having so much fun. I saw myself like some action guy, popped up and shooting and all of that. Give it a try. And all the other exhibition centers out there as well. Around this time, let me say a very big thank you to all our partners who have come into partnership with us to help this program come into fruition. So a big thank you to La Liga, who are our associate partners, as well as Vald Performance, Johan Cruyff Institute, Catapult Sports Limited, Catch Me, Ghana Tourism Authority, Southern University Law Center, and TikTok. Also to our supporting partners, the Ministry of Youth and Sports Ghana, Ghana Olympic Committee, Alisa Hotel, and Event Pro. Again, Botswana Football League. Thank you very much for all the support. Right. Now, just to give ourselves a recap of what we heard yesterday, I'll be inviting onto the stage some of the key speakers who spoke. I'll just gauge their thoughts in summarizing their subject of area that they discussed yesterday, so that if you missed it, at least you have a fair idea of what we discussed. So to help me do that, I'll bring on Mo. He is part of our advisory board, and please give that for him as he joins me on stage. Mohammed was also discussing fan engagement there. I'll also bring on Senzo Imbata, who was here throughout the whole session, all of the sessions, and he's also part of our advisory board. So I'll pick a start on bits and pieces of everything that was discussed. There's also Faisal Chipsa. Faisal Chipsa. There he is. Please give that for him as he joins. Right. So Faisal will also join me up here. We'll just go about it because he also had a very lovely session yesterday. Then we would have that discussion. Right. Okay. So we'll set off. And I'll start with you, Mo, even before Faisal takes his seat. It's going to be very brief before we go into the session. Just to recap, gentlemen. All right, so please do share this one for me. Great. Now, let me start with you, Mo. You were on fan engagement,
yes,
right? With Cynthia.
Of course, the amazing Cynthia.
Amazing Cynthia. Where's Cynthia? Give me a wave. She here? All right, Cynthia is having that meeting at the other side, so yeah, she will join us pretty shortly. But let's start off with you now. Fan engagement, it's important. And yesterday while you were on the panel, you were discussing, I kept asking myself, when you watch all these leagues across the world, right? And you even mentioned that when you take it back to lower divisions, the Bundesliga, the 4th tier, fans are very enthused. That it adds everything to the game. And in fact, fans bring in a lot of money. I mean, after the discussion, what was the summary, or what did you pick out of how we can get fans?
I think football is for fans.
Right.
If you don't have fans, why do we play football in a professional way? And yesterday, conversation was about, I think Cynthia has stressed on the numbers and the clubs, how many fans you have, and that question is very important if you want to bring money for your clubs. And unfortunately, like last year, most of the CEOs of the clubs don't know exactly the number of fans they have. And we talked about fan engagement, and we talked about how clubs can approach their local communities to get more fans loyal into the clubs by making the connection, being transparent, telling them about the club. We talked about visiting schools and orphanage houses that will bring why people sometimes football is not about the 90 minutes of the pitch. It's about the stories behind it. And this is the kind of things that clubs should do. So most of our talk was about how clubs can do with fan engagement. Of course, we have an issue also with the facilities in Ghana. And this is one of the things that if you don't have a stadium, proper stadium for fans to come, how they come. We talked also about digitalization and digital broadcasting, because this is important, because if you don't have your games broadcasted, how can the people watch you, know about you? One of the other things we mentioned about Ghana is every club is focused on selling their players, but not making their players brands. And that's important because people love the players. And they have to have players for some years, so that they create the bonding with the fans. So this is what a brief about what we talked about yesterday.
Fantastic. And of course, as you rightly said at the start, I mean, football or sports in itself is a fun. Let me come to you, Faisal. You are a FIFA high performance expert or specialist. You were there throughout the World Cup. And on your session, we're looking at lessons learned from the FIFA World Cup. What in itself can you summarize and say Africans can learn from the just ended World Cup to take Africa to the next level to compete?
Thank you very much. If I could take the opportunity to say congratulations to the Super Falcons and also Bayan from South Africa. I think it's a huge step for Africa. And hopefully, within maybe 60 minutes, Morocco would also join us there. But going back to your question, Sid, so I think for a very long time, Africa has worked in a very, very subjective way. Not to say subjectivity is wrong. I think we need that qualitative analysis, but sometimes we have to move the scale a bit to the quantitative analysis side of this, which is using data to improve our performance, not only on the pitch, but off the pitch as well. So we looked at the metrics that FIFA used to find, key findings from the World Cup, and how we can take those metrics and apply in our own environment, in talent development, in coaching education. And the message there for us is to, again, bring some of these new ways and innovations to our coaching workforce and talent development ecosystem as well. Areas where we can go and grab this new knowledge, this new way of working, and apply in our environment. So I was very fortunate to have our own Ghana U17 assistant coach Lai Kingston join me with the discussion, and we looked at how can we take those key findings, how can we find them, and then apply in our own environment. So hopefully it was a fruitful discussion for those who attended.
Yeah, another very sensitive, then I'll come to you. Another very intriguing subject that was discussed yesterday was when we were discussing how to safeguarding in the sports integrity. In more recent years, it's even become more apparent in many leagues, because of sports betting, match fixing, and what have you. And while we discuss the integrity of the sports, obviously, if there's no integrity to the sports, and it's become very predictable, and fans don't trust the outcome of the games, they lose interest. How do we here in Africa make sure that there is that level of integrity and trust, and again, safeguarding it?
Thank you very much for the opportunity as well. I said throughout all the presentations, I must say that they were very insightful, and it was something to really focus on. Just to answer your question, I still believe that without governance, we're not heading anywhere. I mean, the professor or the doctor was sitting here from the University of Ghana, I think, spoke lengthily about issues of governance. It starts with you before it goes to players. He did even mention issues around coaches being the ones that are sort of encouraging athletes to sort of cheat so that they are able to compete at different levels. So I think it starts with us. It should start at a very young age, when kids know that if they didn't go through their trials, they cannot be done a favor to go and compete in any event. So I think that was a take home. If I may as well, that throw in a 2 cents worth on the issue of fan engagement. Cynthia elaborated very much and explained what is fan engagement. So being the person that I am, that I'm a money man, I need to make sure that I commercialize my brand. I take it further. Fan engagement is the interface between an organization and its customers. I know that there's this thing about fans, that the fans must come to the stadium and everything. No, I don't dispute that. I am saying it is an interface between yourself and your customers, because all those fans, you need to ensure that they are spending their money on your products. You need to make sure that they are buying the jersey, they come into the stadium, anything that is associated with your business, they become your first-hand customers. So I think that topic was very interesting, and it will also spread to today's discussions around when we discuss issues of OTT. How do you ensure that fan engagement is still part of that? Also, Faisal spoke about the takeaways from the recent FIFA World Cup. I don't want to claim that this is what I'm coming with. I know somebody said it. Africa has got a chance to win the World Cup, and that chance will only come through women. Thank you.
Well said.
Now, I'll go back to you, Mo. Cynthia mentioned it, that she is a Kotoko fan. By the way, the former CEO of Asante Kotoko is in the building. And Cynthia mentioned it, that the reason why she's a Kotoko fan is she's not in Ghana, she's in Kenya, but she can hear about the club, she can see the club. Visibility is important. How the clubs package themselves and put themselves out there is important. On the continent, have we done enough? And what do we need to do? We can say, yeah, let's package ourselves, let's put ourselves out there, but the how? How do they do it?
We all in Egypt know Ashanti Kotoko very well, because we remember the game against Zamalek in the 80s. And I think this is one of the things that people keep reminding over generation. So recently, we haven't seen any Ghanaian clubs in the CAF competitions playing on top level. When you ask anybody, Ash, yesterday I was talking to him and he mentioned Ahli and Zamalek and Wydad, because that's what you hear about in the news all over. So clubs need to be in the continental competition always. And we don't talk a bit about diaspora, people outside, foreigners or Ghanaian outside Ghana. These are also attached to the country, and the clubs can promote. But the clubs have to do a lot of effort in order to get seen by them. Since we talked about the fans is our customers, because at the end of the day, these are the customers of the clubs. But that's a different kind of a customer, that some of the customers, usually it's about the product, they like it or not. But the fans have a loyalty, and that is something you cannot buy. It's too hard to have, and that's the beauty about the football. Your team can be losing, and the fans can be cheering in the stadium. They win, they pay for a ticket, you played a bad game, and they still cheer for you, defend you. And that's the kind of customers every company would like to have. But the clubs have to do the effort. With this effort, they will be seen, because people talk a lot, and for example, let me give you a couple of things. When new kids, new generation right now play PlayStation a lot, okay? If you find the Ghanaian Premier League on PlayStation, lots of the kids will get engaged. If you talk about fantasy game, do you have fantasy game for the Ghana Premier League? We don't. The English Premier League created the fantasy league because people will have to watch other players from other teams, because they pick them and their teams. That creates a bonding even on the player level. I may support Man United, but I will buy Salah from Liverpool in my team because I know Salah is getting us wins. So that's the kind of things people create, the clubs create, to engage more fans. And the more fans you have, the spread of the word you have, because people talk to each other, and that's how the club name is always ringing, or a bell or whistle to everybody else.
Right. crucial stuff there. I come back to you, Faisal. And you spoke yesterday back to what we learned from the World Cup and talent development. We spoke yesterday about how talents are transitioned and if they are transitioning to the right models, because if you are playing a brand of football at under 17, which is very different from what under 20s are playing, the national team is playing, transitioning becomes almost impossible. And I think Coach Lai, thank you very much, mentioned it, that when you watch maybe the Spanish national team, German national team, it's easy for a player who is 17, 18, once he's got ability to move straight into the senior side because the modules are there, the standards are there. But when it comes to creating these modules, and I remember you called it a culture, how difficult is it? Why don't we have a lot of that in this part of the world? Is it so difficult that we can't do it?
You know, the simple things are the more difficult things to do, if I should put it that way. But it's more of creating a common understanding. And as I shared yesterday, some people call it DNA, but for me, it's more of a culture. You know, a DNA, yes, it's one thing that sort of, you know, puts two people together in commonalities. But the culture for me is the most important. The culture is one thing that always sticks. You can never move away from your culture. And if you look at in the Spanish environment, there is no official DNA, just like we claim to be in certain places. In some countries there are. England has a DNA, which is fine because that's the way they want to communicate and find a method of working. But for me, it's more about creating that culture that everybody understands, a language that everybody understands, whether it's a football language, whether it's a terminology. So everywhere you go, people can relate to what you say, especially for players and coaches. But it also happens when we bring stakeholders together. No single football federation can do this alone. This includes sitting down with the clubs, with coaches, sometimes media, because of course they preach the language and they share that for everybody to understand. But it begins with stakeholder involvement. And the more we include everybody in a single room to talk about how we want to portray ourselves and identity we want to create, that is for me, the foundation. And until that is done and it's tested in a way that everybody understands, then unfortunately, that wouldn't be a successful implementation of a DNA or a culture that may lead to successful football transition then. It's very difficult. We need patience. But again, can we now be, in a position where we are confident enough to transition our young players, knowing very well we've given them the right education. Education means both academic and sporting. And it goes hand in hand. Football and education are inseparable. And until we move to the stage where we are comfortable doing both, allowing our players to do both, then I don't think we are in a good path here. When I was growing up, I was told you can't do both. Now I know that's not true. I was lied to several times, and I'm a testament of that because I went through sporting and academic. So again, are we ready to go back and say to our kids, yes, you can do both. We will support you to do both. And 0.02% of players actually involved in football will become professional players. So if you take 100 students, only 2, if you're lucky, would become professional players. So the majority, we have to create pathway for them as well. It's our responsibility and duty to prepare these players for life in football and also life outside the pitch there. Until we include that in the culture or the DNA, then again, I don't think we are going the right path there. So hopefully, we will move in that direction and prepare players for first team, and also prepare players outside of the field.
Right. Thank you very much. Senzo will have the final word for this recap of what we had yesterday. Senzo, we spoke about sports education, and Faisal, landed on that point as if he knew the question I was going to ask already. Made my job simple. Anyway, are we doing enough in Africa to merge education as it is the formal way of education, learning your science, your maths, your social? I believe when a player plays in the academy system, it's still a form of education because it's sports education. But are we merging enough the formal way of education that we know and sports? Are we doing enough?
Yesterday,
and how can we improve if no?
Yesterday, I listened attentively to the first discussions, which really was about education and physical education versus sports education. I think that unfortunately or fortunately, in Africa, we've always seen football as a means to get out of poverty. We've never seen football as means of your work. People will go to the extremes just to make sure that the child, is training hard, no regard for education, just to make sure that they can be sent to Europe. So I think there's so much that can be done to ensure that there's integration between education and sport. Also, we also need, Faisal, you spoke about stakeholders, and football cannot do it alone. Universities and these institutions of higher learning, they need to understand the makeup of a footballer or any athlete. Having 6 subjects in a semester, while we have high performance requirements of training and everything, it's impossible. It says that now, how do we ensure that I still get my degree, as opposed to getting it in 4 years, but I get it in 6 years? How do we stagger to ensure that now the child is excited that he's going to school, he's taking his time while he's competing? So I think it is important for us to really look at ways we do things, and also make submissions as organizations to the government, to the university, to say, we feel that this is the best way to manage this school and sports at the same time. Also, I wanted to highlight the fact that we also have to look at our curriculum. There is no way that we can have thousands and thousands of graduates that have got a degree or a diploma in sports, but that degree don't mean anything. So I think there's importance that must be, investigated in terms of, do you do what is sports management? Can't you do business administration and infuse sports management courses or subject in it, so that when you graduate, we are able to run the business of sport? So I think the initial discussion yesterday was something that is very interesting for me, and I think we need to continue having this discussion and see how best do we go back to our different organizations and ensure that education is not a hindrance, or rather sports not a hindrance for people to succeed in their respective lives.
Right. Thank you very much, gentlemen. So that was a brief recap of what happened here yesterday. Please give that for them. Mohammed El Badri, Senzo Imbata, and Faisal Chipsa. Gentlemen, thank you very much. There'll be more coming from Chipsa. There'll be more coming from Senzo. So there's plenty in store for us in this conference. Right. So that was just a recap of what happened yesterday. Plenty of it. And there's more to come. The first session that we are going to be having today is very much going to be, and a very interesting topic, as I mentioned, is going to be on education and post-career, preparing for life after sport. It's a crucial one, really is, because we've seen, some of our ex-footballers across the continents, once their careers are done, we hear that, they are not doing much. Some go through depression, some suffer a lot of, problems post-career, but how then can we now start having that conversation, right? How would a footballer or an athlete in any discipline finish his or her elite career and be ready to still have something to do? It doesn't only have to be in sports. It can be in other areas of life, other ventures, other businesses. But do we have these discussions enough? In fact, do we have, business entities set up to guide and coach these players while they focus on grooming themselves to be the elite professionals that they can be? So we're going to be having that discussion. It's a crucial discussion that needs to be had. We're going to talk about it. We're going to be speaking to some football administrators who have had this encounter and also guided some footballers to think beyond the career of the sportsman. Remember that for a sportsman, their lifespan is very short in the sport. I've not seen anybody who's done any elite sports for up to when they are 70 years, 60 years, sometimes 50 years. I'm not too sure. I might be wrong, but I'm not too sure, especially in the sports that are very known to us on the African continent, which means that even though they can be stars for 10 years, give them 15 years, 20 years, and their time is done. What then after when their time is done? So ladies and gentlemen, brace yourselves as we have that conversation, which is going to be coming up very, very shortly. I'm going to be joined here on the platform by Professor Moses Mande Omuni. He's the HOD of Physiotherapy and Sports Science, KNUST. Please give it up for him. If Prof is ready, Prof will join me in a jiffy, so we just get that conversation going. He'll also be joined by Mr. Kujo Fianu. He's the chairman of the Ghana League Clubs Association, GALCA. Please give it up for them. All right, while I wait for them to strap up and join me here, I'll just take my seat and wait for them while they join me. Gentlemen, please, once you are ready, you can join me on the platform. Very well then. So like I said today, we've got our exhibition centers out there. Please, you can visit them. Catch Me is there, Catapult, who are going to be having their session later in the day on sports wearables are also very much available. And then e-gaming as well would also be available out there. So please go to our exhibition center. Ghana Tourism Authority have also set up. Please, all of you are not from Ghana. We've got some very lovely places to visit. And I do hope that you have enough time to spend in Ghana to see some of our lovely tourism sites. Never boring when you visit them. Plenty of places to enjoy. Good food as well. Who has tried, non-Ghanaians, who has tried the banku? Cynthia, you did. You loved it? Don't take too much of the green pepper. Who else has tried something else? Wache. The wache. Who tried wache? Ah, nobody. You are missing the point. You can't come to Ghana. No. There you go. Thank you very much. You loved it? Right. You can't come to Ghana and not try banku, fufu, wache. Ghanaians, show them TZ. And when they are eating, let them face the wall. Like we do it properly here as Ghanaians. All right, gentlemen, please. They are ready to join me for this session. So please, again, help me welcome Professor Moses Mande Omoni. He is from Kenya University Physiotherapy and Sports Head of Department. Sir, please join me here. Please give it up for him. Right. And then there is also going to be the Ghana League Clubs Association President. That is Galka, Mr. Kujo Fianu. He's the chairman. There you go. Welcome, sir. Thank you for your time. Okay, so we'll just get straight into it now, shall we? You ready? You ready to have this conversation, guys? All right, so let's get straight into it. Gentlemen, welcome.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, it's a very interesting conversation we're about to have today. We're looking at athletes and post-career, education and post-career. It's a very important subject matter. But when that topic comes to mind, Prof, to begin with you, how do you process it? What do you think about straight away when we talk about athletes and their post-career?
Wow, thank you so much. And for the opportunity to be here at this point in time. But before I answer your question, can you please give me the permission, all of us, can we please rise up and acknowledge our athletes, our hero, the reason we are here. Let's clap for them. Let's clap for them. Let's clap for them. We are here not because of us. We are here because of the athletes.
Right.
We are here because of the heroes. Please let's have a seat. We are here because of these people that have spent their lives, not for themselves alone, but to preach the name of their family and the country and the world. About post-career athletes, the first thing is, where are we? Some days you see yourself celebrating, they mention all the names. The babies that is unborn is mentioning the name of an athlete. Another day, it's as if the athlete is forgotten. It's not an encouraging thing. It's not a good news. But I hope this avenue will give opportunity for us to see the best way to bring them into a limelight. Athletes and their careers, it's an interesting thing to see them at the initial stage. It's an interesting thing to see them bubbling. But when we fail to put in the right thing, most especially education, we will not be able to see the potentials they have inbuilt outside sports. I want to look at them as the major reasons they are in the sports. It's not because of them, just like the last presenter mentioned about, yes, want to get some money. It's not really want to get money alone, but because of many factors. Number one is the pressure of the family, is the pressure of the friends, pressure of peers, pressure of coaches, and pressure of surviving in life. When you bring these things together, some of them, I remember carrying out a study to look at the interest of university athletes now to want to continue into sport after graduation. 60% of them says no. Then why are you into sport while you are in the university? Just to survive. The orientation is not there. They don't know what it entails. So, I think this gathering is a fundamental one to look at. Why were athletes who has once been the eye of the world become a beggar on the street?
Right. We'll get
Thank
straight
you.
into that one now. So now I'll bring Mr. Kujofiano in. So you have been dealing with a lot of, by the virtue of your position and your job, and historically, all that you've done through football, you've dealt with several athletes throughout their careers. From your experience, at what point do you think any athlete should start thinking post-career? Is it at the start? Should you consider all of that at the start? Is it when you're at your peak? Is it when you are just on your last legs? At what point does an athlete decide when they start considering what they do?
Yeah, thank you very much. This is a very interesting topic, and it's normally a sad spectacle when we see most of our stars at the end of their career struggling to survive. I'm happy to see a few faces here, especially Lion Kingston making life after his profession as a footballer. The question you ask is very, very paramount. Coming from an environment where we have given back very little to these stars, career guidance, trying to shape them to face the rigors of life. We only enjoy them when they are performing for us. And their career ends with whatever support we gave them. So, from hindsight, I would want to say that the very day the athlete decides to engage in sports, he must start planning for his future. There is no time to waste. There's no time to plan for the rainy day. Immediately you decide to be a sportsman, you must start it. Because as a civil servant, I'm entitled to work till 60 years. And I have the luxury of even asking for more years on contract. But a footballer, when the body is weak, that body is weak.
You're done.
You are done. There's nothing you can do. And if you are not prepared, that is where the challenge comes. And I want to say that we haven't done well, be it government, be we the administrators, because when the mind is virgin, coming to your question, when the mind is virgin, that is when the mind will take in those little bit of advice. Gentleman or lady, this is the way you prepare yourself. When you wait until he becomes a star, he's counting the bucks. At that time, the mind is on a different planet. So when you wait until he gets out, nothing goes in anymore. So at that early stage, you also have to tap into where his interest is. Because you don't have to wait until at the end of the day, he looks at the left, right, there's nothing to be done. Okay, let me veer into coaching. That is not where the heart is. He could have been a good business man. He could have been a good administrator.
Right.
He could have done something else. So we need to prepare them right from the onset that the job you are doing, let him know. 30, 35, you are packing off.
Right. But staying on that, you said the key point, they need to be prepared. But who does these preparations? Is it parents? Is it agents? Is it a sports agency somewhere that is lacking in Africa?
It should be done holistically. And here, if I want to limit myself to football administration, we must get the requisite backroom staff, okay, like a psychologist or a business planner, who should be one of the backroom staff.
For an association
No,
of individual players.
For instance, a club.
Right.
Or for an association. So as soon as this athlete starts performing, you tap into his mind where the interest is. So you start talking to him. You start advising him. You call an athlete that I want you to go into estate development. He knows nothing. He doesn't know the nitty-gritties of estate development. He will have the money all right. He could buy chains of properties, but because the money is not there, he may prefer to buy flashy cars. That's where the interest is. You've got to tell him that you need something that is sustainable, that can sustain you till you pack off. So we need to, when you go out there, if you check on the backroom staff of clubs, they have psychologists, they have all those things. But here, maybe due to our limited resources, when you get a coach, you get a physical trainer, you think you formed a team. That is not it. And the athletes must also know that there is limitation to what I'm doing. The applaud will be so loud when you are young. But as you hit the 30s and move into the 40s, that is where, and we have this saying, life begins at 40. An athlete's life ends at 40 as an athlete. So what do you do beyond the 40 years? And I think that is why we are having this conversation.
Right.
And I'm saying that as government, as sports administrators, this is one key, because it is sad. It's a sad spectacle to see one of your budding stars, as Prof said, begging for arms. And we must also carry the blame because we have pushed them into that sad situation because we've not prepared them to face the full rigors of life.
Okay, then I come to you, Prof. I mean, with all your so much experience you've got in the physiotherapy there, for elite athletes, they go through a lot of stress, they go through a lot of, trauma while they play. How does all of that impact them post their career? Because sometimes you need to be sound. You need to be in a certain level of, you have to be healthy to a certain degree to be able to make some of these decisions. But when they've gone through that period of being a star, being everything, and all of a sudden you are not the star anymore, they are new budding stars, how do they deal with that, the post-trauma in sports?
Thank you, moderator. I just want to follow up with what the chairman said. Number one, what terminates athletes' career? There are just two major factors. The first one is age, and the second one is injury. Age can still be. You can be looking at yourself physiologically, okay, I'm 21, I'm 22, I'm 23, you are looking at 30, if God permit. But the thing is this, at what time did you know that injury will set in? You don't know.
Right.
And because you don't know, at times this injury may be as a result of probably early onset of an acute injury, the injury not well managed by the professional, and probably the professional, even the injury is not well assessed, even the club or you are playing for is not aware if you are injured. But the moment the injury sets in, this is the package I have here. Number one, there should be what we call 2A2S system.
Can you go into that a little bit?
What I mean by 2A2S system is this. There should be athlete academic support scheme. There should be athlete academic support scheme. This athlete academic support scheme, which I put as 2A2S, should be the first day an athlete is recruited into a club.
Okay.
That's a major role. Number one, these athletes must be enrolled into a school, into a program. Percentage of the money from the athletes is used for the development of athletes. The club is contributing to it. The institution is aware that this individual is an athlete of a club. The institution is aware of it. The National Association is aware of this. You are building the career of that athlete post-injury or whatever happened. The club is also investing. That should be, if the system is in place, even if the athletes move from one club to another club, the system is on. You know that at the end of this, there is investment you are contributing to it. This investment, for those of us in the civil service, you say you have pension scheme. Athletes will not be planning a pension scheme for you. But as a management, I look at it as a holistic thing. The athletes is involved, the stakeholders, which is the association is involved, the club is involved, the institutions is involved, the sport directorate of higher institutions are also involved, planning a program for athletes. The moment they are starting their career, they have joined a club, they have started this, the first thing is, yes, because you are this, you move into an institution and say, this institution, we have these athletes. These athletes, which of the programs you want to go into of interest, he moves into that program of interest. Then part of the money is earning, you are using it to pay his school fees. Probably he has stayed with you 2 years. After 2 years, he's moving to another club. You transit it.
Right.
After 4 years, this is a graduate. Then after being a graduate, he knows that if an injury happens anytime,
It becomes a
he
welfare
becomes
kind
a
of
welfare
policy and
package
scheme
for
there.
him.
Right.
Did we have that here? No. Did we have anywhere? This system should be in place.
But how much of this goes back to the players? Because I can imagine where a football star is earning millions of euros or pounds or dollars, whatever currency that is, million is a lot of money. If they're earning that much, how much of this responsibility also goes back to them to say that, you know, put a chunk of your money somewhere because the unforeseen circumstances could be around the corner? Do they owe themselves that also individual responsibility of backing this?
It has to start with, just like one of the presenters mentioned, a culture in place. It is a system. When you are employed into an organization, there is the practice of that organization. You are recruited into this club. That is the practice of that club. And you know it cuts across all the clubs, it cuts across all the sports. The moment you are there, it is a must for you to be recruited, except you don't want to be. The moment you want to be an athlete in any of your disciplines, you must ensure that you enroll into an institution. Then you know that this is secured for you. That's how I think it should be.
Right. Let me come back to you, Mr. Kujofiano. It's and you did mention it that football class administrators associations should have, if you like, a body or an office that is open to proposing businesses to athletes while they play. Are we also lacking in this part of our world, this continent, proper sports management or sports business, you know, institutions where they can come up with proper plans and convince players or share the plans with them and then develop those plans with them? Do we lack that here? And why do we not have a lot of that here?
Yes, you are right in saying that we lack that. When we talk about the general pension, for instance, that we have for every Ghanaian, it's been covered by only one law. And that law backs the Social Security and National Insurance Trust, SNIT. That when you work, you have to set aside a percentage of your salary, out of which you have to put it into a pool when you retire at the age of 60, that you can access it. And SNIT will hide behind that law, that straitjacket, and treat athletes, civil servants, public servants the same. So if I stop playing football at the age of 35, what happens to me? How do I access that fund? So it should be a collective effort that SNIT, you cannot put sportsmen in that straitjacket because they have these limitations. That is one. Now, even the ability of the club or the association to deduct what is paid to the player or the athlete and paid to SNIT. You go to some clubs or some associations, they are in arrears for months. And the flip side, the side aspect is also that the player or the athlete does not think it is necessary. At the time he's earning the bucks, it's not necessary to put anything aside for the rainy day. So, as Prof said, how do we conscientize the athletes to also know that it is in his or her own interest to set something aside? So, we need to come up with schemes where players can or athletes can roll onto them or engage themselves too. How many clubs or how many associations in Ghana have Provident Fund, for instance? As I'm saying, where an athlete can voluntarily put something in there so that at the end of his career, he could go there. There's nothing like that. Meanwhile, the question we all ask ourselves, when these athletes stand on the podium after winning a medal or a trophy, we play the national anthem.
Yes.
And when they win, they come back successfully. You see the politician, everybody hovering around them, sharing in the euphoria.
Yes. They take the glory maybe
They,
more
take
than
the,
the
they,
athletes.
they even take the glory more than the athletes. So what are we doing for them? These are things we think that the players themselves should also demand. That before I am registered as a player, I want to see 1, 2, 3 in my contract that will take care of me after my career. Because as I said earlier, there is more life. So if after 35 you've retired and you've been granted a grace by God to live on for 90 years, what happens to you at that time? So it should be a holistic approach. The players must also know what is good for them. As I said, all of them cannot be coaches. But some of them can be good administrators. Some of them can be good doctors. Whatever profession.
And even more recently, then I was going to come to, the career paths available for players. We could go on and on about them. As I said, not all of them could be coaches. Some of them could be, broadcasters. In more recent time, we've seen that media houses have taken, the love for employing ex-players, not even to only analyze the game, but even to host it. Yes. And they're making very good money. When you watch the Premier League TV, they've got the likes of Michael Owen on there. When you watch BT Sports in the UK, they've got Rio Ferdinand and co. That is also a path. But these athletes as well need to open themselves up to learning the craft of it. Because it's not only about knowing the sport, it's about knowing how to deliver it as well. So there's plenty of opportunities out there. But how do we, because when a player is busy and playing the football at times, I think they can be distracted. But how do we bring that focus back to them and coach them?
That is why they have agents, some call it managers. And you are not only a manager when the going is good. You become a manager, you manage when the going is tough. That is where you need to prepare your client. Because as a football agent or a manager, the footballer is your client. And you have to prepare him. It is not only where the money is coming, you get him to sign a contract, you take your percentage, bye-bye. And it doesn't end there.
It's quite rampant in this part of the world.
Yes. We only take advantage of them, and at the end of the day, we leave them to their fate. So, athletes, at the time you're even signing a contract with an agent, let him know the responsibilities. They should not only be errand boys, send my car to the workshop, do this for me, do that for me. He should also help in your career preparation. So it is something that we are talking about life.
Yeah.
And we need to attach a lot of importance to it. And the player or the athlete must also know that you also have to open up yourself for preparation. Because if, because you are richer than your agent or your manager, and you think that you should rather be dictating the pace, when you get to the crossroads, you'll be left to your fate. So the players must also know what is good for them.
All right, come back to you, Prof. Again, we are speaking about what the players can do post their career. But credit to everybody globally, there's been a general awareness of mental well-being, right, of athletes across the globe. They struggle physically, they struggle mentally. As a physiotherapist, but have we created an environment where athletes can be open enough to share some of these concerns, really? Because if a player is struggling mentally, the player can't process even other things. They struggle with it. And even if they are going to man their own businesses post their careers, because they're struggling with personal things that they can't discuss, it becomes a problem. Have we created a safe environment for these athletes to walk into and express themselves to people who can help them?
Thank you so much. This is another area, and that's another big area.
This should have been another panel session.
Big issue. But let me emphasize the point that athletes, before their engagement professionally, they are like unemployed person seeking for a job. They are looking for jobs, survivor. There should be a system in place, and that's why I mentioned athlete academic support scheme should be in place. When you are coming in, this is a requirement for you that you must meet. This requirement is, number one, you are going to earn A, B, C, D. Out of it, this percentage will be used for your career. Okay. You must gain admission into a university. It's supposed to be one of the requirements of the agent of the club to ensure that you get into an institution and get admission for these athletes. You must make arrangements. Until we get to that stage, we will be thinking that we cannot plan for them the moment they are in. As they are coming in, the process is already in place.
But
they must follow that.
Then I come to, because you are in the university now, then I come to the point. If I'm an athlete, and now I want to speak for the athletes. If I'm an athlete and I'm like Ghana's Thomas Partey, if you're from Egypt's Mohamed Salah, I'm playing in England. And if I'm playing in England and around the same time, and Ghana has an educational system that I have to enroll in, how do I marry the two? I'm not in the country. How do I school? Do I do it over the internet? My shadows are busy. I train in the morning, I train in the evening. I play in Champions League football. Realistically, when they are playing active football, they barely have the time to do it. Have we tried to streamline a flexible program in these universities that allows these players off-season, while they're having their time, to come home or wherever and have 2 weeks, 3 weeks course, maybe a bit more compressed, so that by the time their careers are done, they have that in there. But if they're going to school like the KNEC students and Winneba students in here, probably impossible, isn't it? Has the university done that?
It's not impossible. The point is this. Before Salah moved there,
yes,
he was here. Has he been a role, when he was playing in a club in Egypt, has he been a role into an institution? He was playing for a club before moving. The moment he's recruited into that club, he should move into an institution. Then as he's moving, there is a transition. He has stayed 2 years in this university. Because he's moving to a club in Europe, the club is aware that he's in this, then he's also transit into another institution over there. He finished it. Then the point is this, because we are interested in selling them, but not interested in developing them. We must take interest in developing these athletes along with their career. Yes, you walk into an institution, if the GFA, if the National Sport Authorities work with the institutions, there is a program that is designed and accredited for them. These are the programs they are enrolled into. Then when this is a program designed for athletes. Then when are they coming in? There are programs for distance learning. Why do they make it distance learning? For some set of people. But these are athletes, you have a program for them. at that point in time, when it could be 5 years, it could be 6 years, yes. When they are moving, they transit to any other club they are into. It becomes part of their investment for them. And they go along with it. If injury occurs anytime, if there is active career termination, they know they move into this and continue with their lives.
Right.
That's what I see. Then, coming into mental, the fundamental for mental issue is multifaceted in nature. You have to look at, number one, the family issue. You want to look at your career issue. You want to look at your social issue. You want to look at your emotional issue. You want to look at the possibility of social relating with
do we
people.
have a safe haven for these athletes to walk into when they face these problems that you just tapped in?
Each club should have at least a psychology and a counselor. It should be a requirement. They work together to make sure that you are taking a responsibility of this child. Listen, no athlete will open up to you if they know that you don't have the integrity. If they cannot trust you, they won't open up to you. But if they have somebody that they can trust in the club, they open up to them. They at least have the urge to open up. But who are they opening up to? Somebody that's just interested in selling them? They also know that if this person is taking my money, he's not going to consider me. But if we have people that have integrity, probably like you discussed yesterday, and these people are there for them, they will open up to them, and they will be able to solve the issue of mental health.
Great stuff. All right, come back to you, Mr. Okay.
Yeah, just to add up to what Prof said, things are easier now than we were having in the past. He talked about distant learning. From every misfortune, there could be blessings. COVID had come and gone, but it's left some good things behind. That now you can sit in the comfort of your home and do whatever you want to do, provided you have a tablet, or even your smartphone can do a lot for you. So I think this is a time we need to get athletes to understand that you can make use of the few minutes at your disposal to add value to yourself, to veer into other things, to make life easier for you after your career. So I don't think that should be a hindrance. Yes, you can go to training, but there are times you can slot in these things to make life better for yourself. So things are easier now.
Right. I wanted to ask, we've spoken about, in fact, very important points on how athletes then can plan for their lives post-football. And I wanted to again ask if we are creating an environment where there's a ready market for these athletes when they are done playing, especially those who want to remain in football, those who want to go into coaching, those who want to be agents. In Africa, do we have a ready market for it?
Oh, yes. Football clubs are, if I want to limit myself to football clubs are springing up by the day. Every businessman.
But can they pay these coaches when they turn elite? I mean, if Coach Laia Kingston does his badges to the highest level and it turns up in Africa, can they pay them well enough? And these are factual issues. Coaches,
I agree with you, but what is more important is that you get your certificate first. And those other things shall follow. If you don't have the certificates, then that is where you'll be wondering about.
Let me play the devil's advocate then. How about I get the certificate, but I'm not confident in getting it because I know in the end there isn't a ready market. I'm just saying, I'm not saying people shouldn't get it, don't get me wrong. I'm just flipping it to the other side because even in the universities, you would agree that you go to school, you're selecting some courses, people will tell you there is no job for it. So choose this course because there's a ready market for it. Now, if I'm an athlete and I'm coming to work in Africa.
Sicho, there is no ready market anywhere. It depends on your ability and the desire to do something. Okay. Quite recently, I heard of a coach who reported his club to the association. Okay. That coach didn't specifically ask for unpaid salaries. He asked for unpaid social security contributions. Because as for the salaries, it could come handy and go. But that he was more interested in his social security payment than anything else. Good coaches are being paid very well, and we also have the bad ones that are not paid very well. But in the ideal situation, you need to start from somewhere. Everybody wants to, the icing on the cake for every Ghanaian coach will want to coach the Black Stars. But you need to start from somewhere. So we need to encourage them. Let's encourage them. Get the badges. And they are aware. In their studies, they know that as a coach, you are described a journeyman. Why are you a journeyman?
You keep bouncing off
You keep bouncing off.
several places.
Today, in the morning, you hear that a coach had been relieved of his job. By 6 o'clock, you hear that he's been picked by another coach. So if you know that these are the rudiments of your job, you are going to be a journeyman. Today you are here, tomorrow you are there. You prepare yourself psychologically for it.
Right. Okay. I want to flip this. The similar question is a similar question to what I just asked, and any of you could take it, Prof. or Mr. Fianyo. So, typical example. We are in Ghana, so I'll use Ghana Premier League as an example. We've got 18 football clubs. I'm not too sure how many of them have got psychologists. I'm not too sure how many of them have got qualified, certified personnel who are into sports medicine. I'm not sure how many of them have got proper physical trainers who have got the certificate. Now, if we've got 18 Premier League clubs, if you multiply that, if every club is taking minimum 2, that is the job. If you've got 2 of all these disciplines I've mentioned, that is the job. When you look at the backroom staffs of these Premier League clubs, it's very thin. Not many of them even have sports analysts and what have you. So when I speak about the market maybe not being there, it's probably because even the clubs, or there's no real pressure on these clubs to make sure that these positions are filled, so that when they're out there, the job is there.
We moved
Maybe I should come in.
some.
Okay.
Okay. We moved a step further. Now that we are doing the club licensing, it is mandatory on clubs to get certain level of personnel, video analysts, psychologists, those who have the means. You would even need a dietitian. And a coach would demand some of these positions before he will even take up a job. The crux of the matter is that we need to prepare coaches or our ex-staffs who want to go into coaching to know that to be a successful coach, these are the backroom staff you require to make you successful, and ask for it. They shouldn't be the coach that will ask for 30 footballs, knowing very well that ideally each player must have a football to himself. And the chairman will tell you, what are you going to do with the 20 or 30 football? He cannot explain. Okay, I can give you 5, and he accepts it. So, ideally, every club, when you are playing professional football, Division 1, Premier Division, you must have these backroom staffs to help these coaches to perform creditably.
Right, Prof, I think
Thank you. Let me bring in this way. Chair, are we actually professional as into sports?
we are supposed to be, aren't we? But are we?
I'm not talking about professional league. I am not actually talking about professional league. Oh, the criteria, Chair, that you put out now, they are laudable. Are we implementing these things? I can say categorically that if we are actually implementing it and we are monitoring the implementation, yes, clubs will move from where it is to where we want it to be. I'm aware that some years back, as a club that came to us in the university there, Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology, and asked for consultation, this and this, and sorry to use that word, I asked a question, did you want to go professional? Oh, the young man said, oh, Prof, this question you asked, I can't answer it, or I'll come and give you answer. I'll be expecting him tomorrow. What I'm saying in essence is that it is not just for us to say we want to go professional. We must do what a professional club entails. The club licensing, it is good. Accreditation expected, it is good. Get you had the manpower will be there. You'll be able to create market. In my school, we produce graduate of sports management. We produce graduate of sport and exercise therapies. Yes, we produce graduate of physiotherapies.
Yep.
With other schools also producing. This will be available market for them. Then athletes that goes into such programs, there will be market for them. It is expected of the sport organization, it is expected of the government to ensure that the right thing is put there. Listen, sport is money, it's business. It should invest into it and get the reward. If we are not determinedly investing into it, we will still be talking grammar. And which is the truth. We should implement it and do it the way it should be done, so that we will not put a local club is playing, a foreign club is playing. I'll be very excited to watch a foreign club with paying my money, using the same platform, and leave the local club here, because it's not exciting. We must invest therein, and investing therein is not the responsibility of one person.
Right.
It is responsibility of all stakeholders involved and get it done.
Right. We'll be wrapping up this session very soon, because the next one is just about to also start in a couple of minutes. But gentlemen, I'll take your final words in summary for advice to all athletes, or your final talks to all athletes while they play the game and they prepare for post-career. I'll start with you, Mr. Kujofiano.
I will want to say that they should make hay while the sun shines, because when you are out, when the applaud is not loudest, nobody even recognizes you. You may go to, when you are a star, all doors are open to you. You can enter into any office and ask for favors. But as soon as you bow out, you also join the queue with those who want to see the people in authority. So I will advise that they should open their ears, their eyes, whilst they're in active service, so that they prepare themselves very well, so that they can face the world when they bow out from whatever professions they've chosen for themselves. It is not limited to footballers alone.
Yeah.
We've had boxers,
All athletes.
all sportsmen. They should prepare very well. Make sure that they listen to advice. Invest wisely in areas where they have their strength, not in areas that they have weaknesses, because they may start something laudable which will not be sustainable.
Right. Prof, your final words.
My final word will be for us to put a system in place that will make athletes enjoy during active days, and when they go into the post-retirement or post-active era, they're going to have a premium to rely on. Thank you.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. Ladies and gentlemen, please give it up for my panel. Mr. Kujofiano and the professor there. He's all the way from KNUST, and he is the HOD of the Physiotherapy and Sports Science, KNUST, Mr. Moses, Professor Moses Monday. Gentlemen, thank you very much. Please give it up for them. A very important topic, and I do hope that all our athletes, some way, somehow, this message will get to them. It's a personal responsibility for them as well as it is for we as a society to create that enabling environment for them to also get into how their career is. Because I'll tell you what, if they groom themselves and they train themselves and the market is not here for them, they'll have to go out there and compete with those who are on their own continent and they have their market. And we've seen it increasingly, it's become very difficult for some of our athletes. So yes, they need to take that personal responsibility. But as my expert panel said, the environment has to be also created for them. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for paying attention to it. And again, a round of applause for my panel. So the next session is coming up about now as the team gets ready to set them up for it. It is going to be then hosted by a Southern University Law Center. They'll come up with their panel, and so I'll be exiting the stage very soon. I should also remind you that there's going to be lunch after our third session, so please don't worry about that. And there's also the exhibition center once you step out there. And after lunch, we'll break into our parallel session. Ladies and gentlemen, to help us go to our next session or to get into the discussion of the subject matter, driving legal excellence in gaming, esports, music, and entertainment, a Southern University Law Center panel, please help me welcome Marla Dickerson, the Vice Chancellor of the Innovation and Strategic Partnership and Initiative of SULC. Marla, welcome. Good to see you.
Thank you.
Brilliant, great stuff.
Great to be here.
Yeah, fantastic. We're looking forward to this one, aren't you?
Oh, I am excited about being here in Ghana. We are enthused about being able to bring what we do back home in the United States here and hopefully be able to forge some partnerships to help form mutually beneficial relationships.
Yeah, very important subject matter that we're discussing now. Everything has become these days. Everything has become electronic these days. So it's important that while we focus on what the athletes do on the pitch and around it, esports, gaming, entertainment as well becomes a crucial part. And from where you come from where you've worked throughout, entertainment is crucial with sports, isn't it? It's almost like you can't have that without the hardcore sports.
Yes, so we understand that our students, especially black students who we educate at Southern University Law Center, are very interested in sports and entertainment. And exactly what that means is very important. And so how do we protect our brand? How do we protect our image? How do we protect the creative sides of what we are developing in order to make sure that we are the people who are actually going to benefit monetarily from that?
Right.
And no one can use our ideas and our thoughts and our creations without our permission. So it becomes very important not only in entertainment but in sports, because sports is branding, sports is image. And so if someone wants to use your likeness, it's very, very important for you to control that narrative and not let other people be able to profit and you not control exactly the narrative and the projection of who you want to portray.
Absolutely.
So it's very, very important for us to learn the legalities around how we can really protect ourselves.
Fantastic. Ladies and gentlemen, that is what is just about to start. As I leave it for Marla to get stuck into it, please have your seat, call up your guests, and please take it away. Ladies and gentlemen, let's enjoy the session.
I feel like I'm on a Price is Right. I want to call everybody down one at a time. So we have Torrance entering the building. I'm a comedian, y'all.
Take it away.
Mr. Torrance Burnett is the coordinator of our music and entertainment programming at Southern University Law Center. We have Mr. Christopher Turner. Come on down. You're the next contestant on the Afro Sports Summit panel. Yay! Yay! And so we have Ghana's very esports guru, Mr. Kwesi. Come on down. Yay! I like to, this is how I do in front of my class too when I teach. So, so I have to move. Is that better? Is that better? Okay. So just to give you a little bit background on Southern University Law Center. Southern University Law Center is a part of Southern University's system, which is the only historically black college and university system in the United States. That system consists of five campuses. One of them is Southern University of Baton Rouge, which is a 4-year institution. We have Southern University of New Orleans, which is also a 4-year institution. Southern University of Shreveport, which is our 2-year institution. And then we have Southern University Law Center, which we all are representing, and Southern University Agricultural System. So it's a big school that provides a lot of opportunities for people. At Southern University Law Center, we were founded in 1947 by it's not happenstance, but a man named Charles Hatfield applied to get into Louisiana State University, which was for white people only. He was denied access, of course, because he was black. He sued the state of Louisiana in the United States. From the suit, he obtained $40,000. And instead of using the $40,000 for himself in order to educate black attorneys, he wanted to create a law center in the state of Louisiana for black people to attend. So he created Southern University Law Center. In 1947, we started. So we just celebrated our 75th anniversary. We have graduated about 6,000 students thus far, and we are committed to educating not only those folks in Louisiana, but around the United States and also around the world. We have several international students who enroll in our program every year, and we welcome anyone who's willing to participate. I'm going to turn it over so our panelists can briefly introduce themselves for about a minute before we jump into questioning.
Hello, everyone. My name is Torrance Burnett. I'm a former major label executive who decided late in life to become a lawyer. So I got my opportunity at Southern University Law Center. I graduated last year, and now I'm giving back by helping to bolster our initiatives in the sports and entertainment sector.
My name is Christopher Turner. I'm the Mixed Reality Virtual Innovation Gaming and Esports Institute Director at Southern University Law Center. Been in education about right now, right at 17 years. Just crossed over to higher ed thanks to this young lady to my right. Just here to educate, promote esports, gaming, and everything in mixed reality. And we'll get into the deeper things later on in the discussion.
Hello, everyone. My name is Kwesi Hayford, and I'm currently the president of the Esports Association Ghana. And what we're trying to do is to bridge the gap between digital sports education with esports. At the same time, we're also building inroads to create professional pathways. And we see that grassroots development is very key to us. And what we do is to also partner existing sports institutions, teams, and corporations so that we can have a firm and a formidable esports ecosystem in Ghana. Thank you.
So my first question is going to be for Chris. Explain to everyone what exactly is esports.
We get this question a lot. So pretty much esports is competitive video gaming. It's not new to Ghana, thanks to Kwesi and a few others that have did the groundwork here. But it can look different in any game. I mean, I think here FIFA is the one. So that can be a 1v1, one versus one player. But you have big, like Rocket League is a big title in the States. And so that can be 3v3. And you're starting to see competitive video gaming in what we call K through 12 schools where you have young women and young gentlemen playing competitive sports all the way to college, which we call collegiate in the States, and then on to professional and semi-professional. So, yeah, that's pretty much what esports is. It's competitive video gaming.
Now, I had a very robust discussion with a gentleman yesterday about whether esports is actually sports. What's your response to that when there are questions about the validity of whether esports should actually be called esports and not gaming?
Yeah, I've been in this industry right at 7 years now. It's a sport. You might not be physically active, but mentally, you have soft skills like teamwork. You're able to develop with each other. You have practice. You have scrimmages. You watch videos recapping your gameplay. So it's really intense. It's not just getting in front of the screen. And then what I say to everybody that's questioning, is it a sport or not? Just take this. It's the biggest form of entertainment in the world. It's bigger than football. It's bigger than basketball. It's bigger than hockey. It's bigger than movies. It's bigger than music combined. So it is entertainment. That's where your children's generation is. That's where your grandchildren are going to live. I tell people all the time, we're one generation away from the whole house being gamers. So it's not going anywhere. And so to your point, Marla, yeah, it's a sport.
So now that you have shocked everyone with this information that it's a sport and that we are one generation away from having a household of gamers, how does that tie into scholastic achievement and teaching and really developing skills? I mean, is this something that we really need to have our children invest in? Or is it just going to be something that is going to cause them to waste brain cells?
They're not going to waste brain cells. It's definitely a gateway, and Marla, if you don't mind, I'm going to pass it to Kwesi for a second. So it definitely, you're meeting the kids where they are. That's pretty much where they live, play, that's where they conversate, that's where they build relationships. And so while you have their attention, you can kind of pretty much point them in the direction where they need to go. What we need to be asking our youth is, what do you like about the game? And then lead them to the back end of the screen, like coding, broadcasting, graphic design, so many college and career pathways that they can use in gaming. I know, Kwesi, you've been to schools here and implemented programming. Just tell them briefly, like, what's the response from the youth?
Okay, so basically, I want to combine two of your questions. So whether it is a sports or it's not a sports, basically, you look at it this way. It's a cognitive activity. A footballer uses his leg. A gamer uses his hands, right? Everybody in sports uses one way or the other their body. For video gamers or professional gamers, they use their hands because it's a cognitive ability. You have to transfer whatever is up here. Ronaldo does the same thing. His skillfulness on the same. I've seen our brother Larry Kingston. He is good on the playing field because it's his mindset. How to tap the ball, how to raise the ball, how to pass it to his friend. With that, in video game, we do almost the same thing. We think about it and passes it into our hands. So when we hold the controller and we are pushing the buttons, it is all cognitive. It is all creative abilities. And the same way in esports, in sports we have physiotherapists. We have that in esports as well. So these are areas that even now in academics, people now can go into. Esports medicine, esports therapies, esports trainers. The same way in sports we have observers. In esports, it has already existed a long time. So the career pathways are diverse just in the same way you have in sports, it is also in sports, in esports. Moving on to that, within that educational pathways are formidable pillars that needs to be discussed. And that will come into, within the scholarship space, how education will bridge that piece of knowledge. And with that will come to kids, with that will come to adolescents, then with that will come to seniors and pros. So there are levels by which we must look at and how we can transfer that. Because it's not only about sitting behind the screens. Esports is not only behind the screens. They are in the Olympics now, they are, the cycling association has cycling esports, whereby you cycle physically, just that you are not moving through town. There's a sport whereby you play boxing, right? You wear real, so your whole body is into it. It's an esports. So esports is not just be sitting behind computer and screens, but there are other aspects of esports that are springing up. There is also motorsports, sim racing, which will you can learn motorsports through esports and then end up being a physical racer as well.
Can everybody hear me? So this is something that when you're talking about thinking, it increases your ability to critically think, to strategize. And as Chris and Kwesi mentioned, it helps when you're really talking about science and technology and engineering and math, because it requires coordination for those students in order to really think about it and be able to win these games. And Chris and Kwesi, correct me if I'm wrong, but if these kids enter into tournaments, are there opportunities for them to get scholarships to attend university? if they win these tournaments?
Yeah, I'll talk about it from a state perspective.
Yeah, okay, so.
So yes. So in the States, we've developed a pipeline almost all the way. Elementary is still under development, but you can get scholarships dollars for middle school, high school, and you can get collegiate scholarships like full rides to college by sitting behind that screen like Quincy said. We have 720 universities in the States that offer scholarships. And so that's big because that number is probably going to triple in the next, I say, 3 to 4 years. And then the development of professional and semi-professional continues to grow. And then from a university perspective, we're looking at the pathway. And so we're trying to recruit the top, let's say 30% in our country, but we're also looking at, what other skill sets that you have. So when I mention like graphic design, analytics, because it's just like any other sport, we need the data, we need the numbers. We need a law student to draft up contracts and, to pretty much create policy for said, esports collegiate teams. And so it's a wide array of opportunity and not just, like Kwesi said, sitting behind that screen. It's growing. In America, we only have 4% of African Americans that are in technology. And so it's a great gateway to get them involved in other pathways and other careers to pretty much, in America, to make a six-figure living. And I'll pass it to Kwesi to talk about, what's the possibilities here.
Well, the possibilities here, I'll talk about the education aspect. For kids, yes, there's the adaptive skills development that we're looking at. Our education structure here has been basically book knowledge, right? But the world has greatly changed. And with that change has come a way for kids to learn adaptively. So my age mate, when we went to school and all we play games, it was physical stuff, But today's kids, my kids, the first time they play games are on our phones. They don't know the alikotos and they don't know about the physical games or even going out to play football. The first games they get introduced to is mobile or digital games. So that sets the boundary for them where their pathways are lying to. So the possibilities, therefore, are being able to create an adaptive skills within the school system. So we need the school system to bring in esports as extra curriculum activity so that the kids can begin to learn. How can even the sporting space help within that? We have clubs all over Ghana. Clubs can adapt schools and help the schools to use esports because let's take football, for instance. Football is our biggest, and I will use it as reference because, in Ghana, we say that even our grandmothers are coaches because of our love and interest for football. When a match is being played, if somebody didn't score and played it right, even the grandmother has something to say, right, whilst watching. He could have done it this way. So football is our biggest game, is our biggest love, as in US compared to NBA 2K or maybe Rocket League or Call of Duty. But with us forms a culture of love for the ball. So we need to create opportunities whereby clubs can build a pathway with schools or in communities that they are located and help the schools to find, let's say, football games within the schools. One of the things that we're trying to push is that clubs in Ghana can pivot on esports to build brand awareness and build pathways into marketing, into digital stuff, digital literacy, basically. So for us, it is for us to build an educational first, and then competition second. And that is one of the ways by which we can help our kids to find that level. Although we have professional esports teams in Ghana. So maybe I'll push to one of our biggest players, Mr. Lai, to form an esports club and helping within his community the young guys who are not even going to school can play video games and stay at home. They can play video games and stay not going to do bad things because esports is passion. And let me tell you a story. We had a meeting with the PRO of the Ghana Army. And one of the things they said was that most of the young people involved in armed robbery and bad things in Ghana is simply because they are idle and don't have anything doing. They've dropped school, drop out. They don't have any educational skills to work on. But one of the ways we can use is to use esports to catch them young, is to use esports to give them pathways for them to be critical thinkers, because through esports they can learn digital skills. And that is also a pathway, an opportunity. And I know Southern University is offering an online courses in law. Within esports also lies IPs, intellectual properties. How do we use these things? We need the schools to give a proper professional pathways as to sports management and esports management. So it's all within that space.
That's a perfect segue, Kwesi, because I'm throwing it over to Torrance. Can everybody hear me? I had some wonderful conversations yesterday as well about the creativeness of the young ladies and young men who are in the villages and their creations. So as Kwesi just mentioned, we talk about intellectual property in the law. What are some of the things that are generally associated with protecting those creative minds that may come up with new concepts for games?
Can you rephrase the question?
So, Kwesi mentioned intellectual property, right? And so we have students who may be engaged in gaming. What are some ways for licensures or licenses for people to have their property protected in the form of copyright or trademark or patent?
So are we talking about the esports athletes or people who are creating like various versions of the game or
The
music
people
or something?
creating various versions of the games.
Okay. Well, I think they probably need to get with a licensed attorney to walk them through protecting IP and IP being intellectual property is a type of property that you can't physically hold in your hand, but at least in the U.S., we do give those creators and authors the right to possess and control a particular idea for once it's been attached to a permanent medium where everybody else can experience it. So with that, we'd want to make sure that they get with, again, an attorney, use whatever copyrights, protections, and trademarks that are available. But typically, most people who make versions of games end up getting into some type of licensing agreement with a bigger company like a EA Sports or something like that. So I would tell you for people here in Ghana, I would make sure that, at least on my own, I get familiar with the Burns Convention and also the World Trade Organization that created agreement called TRIPS, and basically most of the countries came together and worked out kind of a agreement where they would help to protect various pieces of IP, no matter where they originated.
So it's very important that you consult someone, because at the end of the day, when you have an idea, if someone decides to take that idea, you can't control them taking the idea, but there are ways that you can protect yourself if someone does decide to steal your idea. Is that correct?
I think protect kind of gives people the thought that you're shielded and you're completely safe. I think a better way of looking at it is if you put up the right guards, then even if somebody does infringe upon you, there should be remedies available by law that should be activated, and you should get some favorable results, hopefully.
That's a very lawyerly response. United States lawyerly response. Chris mentioned music, and with your background as a music executive, we see music in sports, we see music in various areas. What are some of the ways that, or how do you get your music into areas like that, into sporting events, into games? How do you get that portion in it, or can you explain to us the intersectionality of music and sports, in music and esports?
So there's a big old bunch of questions. Let's try to unpack it. Okay. Let me first say, to the discussion about whether or not esports is real, I'm going to say, as a person who is the worst athlete in the world, I found out at 8 years old that all black men can't jump, and that playing basketball is not something that happens. I also know that esports is a real thing because I don't have the coordination to beat my 7-year-old nephew. So, in Madden, any other basketball game, so I know it takes some athleticism to put all of those things together. So that type of debate is also happening in the music world, because there was once a time when you made a record, you needed a guitarist, you needed a drummer, you needed a vocalist, you needed all of these people to come into the room with you to create a record. Well, now we have bedroom producers and bedroom studios where people with a laptop, a microphone, can use synthesizers that sound like guitars and sound like drums, and make entire albums in their bedrooms that go out to become great. So in that field, we're still debating, are you really a musician if the only thing you play is a QWERTY keyboard in order to make your music? And to that I say yes, because if the fans can hear it, if the people can enjoy it, then the result is the same. So yes, you are a musician. So I said all that to say this to you. If you're looking to try to get your music attached to a game, there's various ways. The biggest way, or the easiest way, is to get with music supervisors. These are the people who are tasked by the major gaming companies to go out and find the right music, the right soundtrack to create the tension and the emotion, or whatever that particular feeling is needed for that segment in the game. In the United States, we have a thing called the Guild of Music Supervisors, where people from all over the country and various companies come together and share resources. There's a bunch of companies out there that will also help music creators to get locked in. The one thing I will caution anyone who's interested in it, I would tell you to be a student, find out what's going on in the industry, and also get with a knowledgeable attorney to help you navigate those treacherous waters, because there are people out here that will exploit you and take pieces of your copyright or all of your copyright and use it for their own benefit and give you nothing in return.
And I'll tell you, that's one of the benefits of having, being in a law school environment, because lawyers can be expensive. I don't know about here, but lawyers in the United States can be extremely expensive. And so one of the things that we do at Southern University Law Center is that we help those up-and-coming creatives. So if you are a gamer, if you are a musician, if you are someone who is aspiring to be a sports player in a traditional sense, how to actually start to navigate with those contracts that someone may present to you. It's hard to sit down and say, well, it's easy to sit down and say, hey, look, go and find an attorney, but this is the beauty of Southern University Law Center, because we're here and we can help navigate that role for you to help you to understand exactly what's being put in front of you or how to protect. And so that's the biggest thing, because it can get very, very complicated. It can be very scary when you are placed in a situation and someone is promising you goals and riches and you don't realize what you're signing, or you don't realize how to protect what you have created. So it's very important. And so, as I was saying earlier, it's one of the reasons why we're here, is because we want to bridge that gap. We want to make sure that not only people in the state of Louisiana and the United States are protected, but we want to make sure, because this is a global world. We have intersectionality, globalization happening everywhere. And so when one person becomes unprotected, we all become unprotected, because as soon as someone thinks that it's easy to take advantage, as Torrance was saying, of someone, then we are all exposed. So it's very, very important for us to seek the proper advice and never, ever give up trying to seek the proper advice. Sometimes we may be the 10th call that someone places, but we're there to help and help guide, because it is extremely, extremely important. And that's what I want to convey when I'm asking these questions, not only having education, but understanding how to protect yourself when you are entering into these arenas, because everything is interconnected. We have someone, again, from music and entertainment who is on a panel with esports persons, and it is literally all interconnected. Would y'all all agree that this is, no matter what the genre of entertainment, of sports or esports, that there are protections and knowledge that needs to occur in order for you to move forth in that pathway?
Sure.
I definitely agree, and I'd like to add a couple things. When you're dealing with any type of contract, one, don't let pride tell you that you can get through this yourself. Because just because you're intelligent and you can read the words on the paper doesn't necessarily mean that you truly understand the nuances of the business and what's on that page. Get somebody who actually knows. The other thing is, if you have loved ones who care but don't have any experience, these are not the people to help you truly navigate the treacherous lane of a contract. Because if you think about it, in the music world, a short form contract is about 85 to 90 pages. And I say that you don't need 85 to 90 pages to say, I think you're great, and I just want to work with you. There must be some other things in different levels in that contract. Get someone who's knowledgeable in the industry, and preferably an attorney, to walk you through those things.
I think another factor too, Torrance, I want you to speak on this, that's related to everything that we're talking about. We're in a generation now that streams. Could you speak on license-free music compared to copyright, what they should be doing, what they shouldn't be doing, why they're on stream, to kind of, like you say, self-guard themselves? I wanted to say protect themselves. But yeah, to put them in the right frame of mind when conducting themselves on streams.
So when a person can put up their music for streaming?
Like say I'm a streamer, I'm at home, I'm playing FIFA, and I have music playing in the background.
Okay, well, great question. Number one, anybody who creates music has the right to control how that music is exploited, and exploited from a legal term, not a bad way. And so what's supposed to happen is anybody who broadcasts it has to get permission from the creator. Typically, that's easy to do by using something called a PRO, or long form is performance rights organization like BMI or ASCAP, and you can get what's called a compulsory license that costs pennies on the dollar. You tell them how much you're going to use it or how long are you going to use it, and you pay a nominal fee that clears you, and you're able to use it. But most of us skip that step because we don't think it's that important.
Right.
It's bad because, one, the creator doesn't get what they're owed for giving you that backdrop to add to that experience that you're giving to someone else. And two, it basically goes back to what Ms. Dickerson is saying, is that for once we allow one person to be wrong, we all get wrong, and now that is the acceptable way when it's actually wrong.
And so, so again, this is something that's extremely important because we all have been to some type of sporting event. We've all been on social media, and we have seen music that is playing. And so how does that affect, is what Torrance was just talking about, how that affects the person who creates the music in order for them to be able to be paid and acknowledged in the correct way is extremely important. And it's things like that we are not always cognizant of because we want to make these beautiful videos or we want to make this beautiful content and we think that it's great. But at the end of the day, it's someone's intellectual property. It belongs to someone. And we are, regardless of how small and minuscule it is, infringing on their ownership of that intellectual property, of that music.
I think another piece that people may not realize is a lot of our platforms have gone through the process to go ahead and license a bunch of music for us, and so that you can go in and see what's available and use music that there's already an agreement in place for you. So my thought process is either use some of that, or if there is something particular that you're using, if you're a big-time gamer or esports athlete and people are coming to watch you and you want to use a particular artist, just reach out. Most artists now can be DM'd right through their social media, so it's not hard to contact people.
So if you are a gamer and you feel like you want to come out to the theme of Rocky, make sure you reach out to the person who is responsible or owns the song for Rocky to make sure that you have permission to use that song. And again, we see this in all types of sports. We see this when footballers come on the field, both American footballers and soccer players. We see this in hockey. We see this all across sports. And those teams have to get permission in order to use that music, because if they don't, they may have to pay a serious fine, especially when you're on a larger platform such as a national team or a team that is a professional team. It's important for the licensing of music to take place so there won't be any fines involved. And so that's basically like how music basically is interconnected, and it's not just in sports. And that's why I say it's so wonderful, because everything is so interconnected, because you think about music and then you don't realize that it's esports, it's sports, it's film, it's television, it's commercials and advertisement. So all these levels have to take place when it comes to really trying to incorporate different things into genres that we don't normally think about actually cross.
You know, I can add one more thing to that. There's a game that I'm not too familiar with called Roadblocks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But Roadblocks, some kind of way, I took a record that I was a part of like some 6, 7 years ago, and for some reason the kids liked it, and it went from there and bled over to TikTok, and it really became a hit over the course of 3 months when otherwise it was a dud.
Yeah, yeah.
So I'm saying that music is so intertwined with everything, kind of like the law. Music is going to be in every sector, whether you're at a restaurant or on an elevator, or if it's time to graduate, there's music playing. If it's time to get married, there's music playing, so forth and so on. So it's all together, and I think the biggest connector is the fact that we're living in this digital world, and because things are digital, it's easily accessible. It's more easy for us to kind of feel like, oh, it's just a part of everyday life, and not think about the particulars that we need to take extra steps to protect ourselves.
There you go.
So we have about 7 minutes left, and of course, I want to give you all time just to talk about the importance of education when it comes to esports, when it comes to gaming, when it comes to sports, when it comes to entertainment, when it comes to music. What advice would you give to someone who is interested in either one of the fields that I just mentioned?
Yeah, I'll go. So, you know, I think from a Southern University Law Center perspective, we're here to support, we're here to educate, like we've been doing for years, under the leadership of Ms. Dickerson, Vice Chancellor Dickerson. She's been real innovative. She's a thought leader. She's a leader, period. Hats off to our Chancellor, Chancellor Pierre, that's not here. He's also that. So, you know, in the lane of esports, it's like I said, it's a subsector of gaming. Gaming is the biggest form of entertainment in the world. Esports is not going to go anywhere. Quizzy, help me out. What's the gentleman's name? He said that it's grandkids. That's all they talk about backstage.
Mr. Fiancus.
Yeah, thank you. But you know, that's where we are. It's going to be a common thought process. It's going to be common, just like what Torrance said about music. It's going to be everywhere. I've said at dinners, and I hate to see it because I didn't raise my children like this, but you know, you have kids, especially in the States. They sit for dinner and play on their tablets. They play, you know, on whatever device they want to play, and they're gaming. And if they're not playing games, they're consuming games. You know, they're watching YouTube, they're watching TikTok, they're watching all these things. And so, with that said, we have an esports and law certification course. I talked to Vice Chancellor Dickerson, and she said it was okay. So we're going to offer it as a discount to you guys. If you go on the site, it's sulc.edu/esports. We will offer it to you guys for $200 USD. Normally, the course is $495 USD. But if you mention that you're at this particular conference, we'll offer to you. We have a class starting next Monday. The good thing about that is it's virtual. We're 5 hours behind you guys, but we videotape every live course. Quez is actually taking the course starting Monday, and so yeah, we'll be pleased to have you guys. We're definitely here for support. Definitely here to educate you guys, and definitely here to help you build infrastructure around whatever sport, entertainment, music, or anything that you have going down the pipeline.
Okay, all right. So, because we are in a sports summit, I want to delve into how it is going. The first thing is that last year we have a close relationship with GFA. GFA is one of the biggest, it's Ghana Football Association. And they together with FIFA, had FIFA E, which is the biggest esports in terms of football that the FIFA administration is carefully steering. And with that, guess what? The opportunity for Ghanaians, gamers, not footballers, to travel outside the country to represent the country, meaning that we are getting to that stage for opportunities, for narratives are being changed. And here, I know I have Easy Gaming coach here. He owns a football club, and he owns an esports club all the way from Volta region. So in Ghana alone, currently I can think about 15 esports teams, and they are all verified by FIFA. So if you go online and check FIFA.gg, there's a huge esports teams that FIFA is currently pushing. And meaning that the narratives are being changed. And even the European countries, almost all of them, you can talk about Man U, you can talk about PSG, you can talk about Chelsea. All of them have their esports teams. And the players are paid exactly the way they are paid in the players on the football field. Meaning that there's a cultural shift whereby footballers or clubs are leveraging on esports to touch base with the next generation. So you can, if you are a club here, you can use esports as a marketing tool. You can use esports as a generation gap to catch the young people, to have following. Because if you don't have spectatorship of the next generation coming to your event, coming to appreciating your brands, we have an older generation of people who love football, yes. You can talk about Phobia, you can talk about all the big teams in Accra, but look at their category of followers or spectatorship or fanship. You see that those in the 13 years, 14 years, 15 years are not there. But these are the future generations who will continually appreciate the sporting world. So I would say that look to esports as a bridge to merge the physical and the virtual, and use it as a way to market your clubs. That's all I would say.
I'll quickly just say that no matter what you're going through, understand that education is the pathway to all of your goals. Never stop learning, always keep seeking the answers, and don't let pride or self-doubt get in your way. Please connect with us. I just want to say real quickly, thank you to our esteemed Chancellor Pierre, who's not here, and Vice Chancellor Dickerson, whose office, along with her, puts on all these great things for our students and now connecting us here. Thank you to the panelists, and thank you guys for being here. I appreciate it. And why don't we get a round of applause for over half off for the certification?
Over half off,
That's a great bit.
So I'll just wrap it up and say that if you want to visit us, you can visit us online, www.sulc.edu. You can also connect with each of us on LinkedIn, Marla Dickerson, Torrance Burnett, Christopher Turner, and Kwesi, what's your last name? Hayford. Kwesi. I'm connected with Kwesi on LinkedIn. Also, we have a booth outside in the hall, so you can stop by to get a brochure about the Esports Law and Management Certification Program. It not only talks about the law, but it talks about managing players and also managing a tournament. And then finally, we have a crossover event that's happening on Saturday at 4 o'clock at the Otium Game Hub. And so we are going to be in Kwesi's home, where we are going to be hosting a tournament, and we are going to have some fantastic prizes for the young kids who are going to be participating there. So if you have time, please stop by 4 o'clock on Saturday that's where we'll be, so you can get a up close and personal look at a gaming tournament.
All right, so Otium is located at the Boundary Road, East Legon, just under the bridge, East Legon, 4 p.m. We'll have some FIFA tournament. Just pass through and enjoy the show.
Thank you all.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, please give me that for them. Fantastic one there on the panel. So we've got a video that is coming up from the Southern University Law Center. Please just have a look at it for just 1 minute.
By taking a closer look at diversity, technology, and collaboration are hallmarks of a new legal culture. Each is crucial to a profession that is the first responder and ultimate defender of the rule of law that applies to all societal members on an equal basis. By taking a closer look at law school leadership, committing to diversity, and utilizing technology to promote access to affordable legal services, Southern University Law Center is preparing the next generation of law professionals to defend and uphold the rule of law, as well as deliver legal services more efficiently, effectively, and to a wider audience. For over 70 years, the Law Center has modeled and produced over 4,000 lawyer leaders who are blazing a trail in the legal profession around the globe, and remains dedicated to educating diverse and underrepresented persons in various socioeconomic areas. Southern University Law Center. Visit sulc.edu to explore our curriculum, get to know our beautiful and lively campus, or apply to enroll. Diversity.
So thank you very much, Southern University Law Center. Thank you, Marla. Thank you, Christopher Turner, Torrance Burnett, and Kwesi Hayford. Now on to our next session before we go out for lunch. Again, a very exciting one. We've all spoken about the fact that there has to be funds. We need to generate money through the sports that we've got on the continent. So what are some of the avenues then we can look to generate these funds? So we'll be going to the next one as they get ready to join me on the panel. We'll be putting into context digital broadcasting in Africa. Is OTT a realistic, viable alternative income source? That is what we're going to be driving into. But I'll tell you what, this conference or summit brings results. Now, when the first panel were having the discussion about post-career of athletes, we spoke about the fact that it could be funds that will be set out for them to invest in, and when they are done with their careers, they could feed into it. Just like in Ghana's context, Senate is for those who work monthly or get their revenue after working monthly and they are contributing to it. So while we spoke, somebody from Senate is here, just passed that information to me that I would like to share with everybody here, to share with the athletes, with the administrator, owner of a club or association. He actually says that they've got a program running for individuals who are self-employed, right? And they call it SEED. So I just thought I should share this one with you. So it's Self-Employed Enrollment Drive, SEED, by Senate. And that also is an avenue where all athletes who, in Ghana's context, who are athletes in Ghana can enroll themselves to and contribute. He says, meaning that if the athlete stops playing football or athletics, they can continue to contribute to Senate payments by themselves because they are being enrolled in the SEED. So that when they have gone to over 60 or the pension time, as we know in Ghana, they can benefit from it. So it's yielding results as this information is coming across, and we have to share with all our athletes so they can contribute to SEED. Thank you very much, Senate. Thank you very much, everybody who has been here and contributing to the summit. All right, so we'll move on to the next one, shall we? Ladies and gentlemen, please then help me welcome the moderator of this section, John Buafo. He's a sports marketing expert. Please give that for us to join me here on the panel. Hi, John.
Hey.
All the way from Cote d'Ivoire.
Yes.
Yeah, you are hosting Africa in January. All of us will be there once we. Cote d'Ivoire is just around here. We can drive there.
I hope to see all you guys there in Abidjan, my new home, although I'm from Ghana.
Yeah.
I live over there.
Yeah. I mean, he's from Ghana. He lives in Cote d'Ivoire now, so I should have said. Anyway, you are coming to talk about a very important one here. We've all spoken about how to raise funds, how to make sure that the sport develops into a part where it can generate enough revenue to pay athletes, to develop infrastructure. And now there's this window of opportunity that is beginning to emerge in a global sports ecosystem, OTT. It's a fascinating subject, isn't it?
Yeah, it's definitely a fascinating subject, and I'm really excited to talk to all the members of the panel who are really experts, guys who have such a wealth of experience, so they can discuss with us OTT and the potential of it on the African continent.
Right, let's crack it. Over to you, please.
All right.
John.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to day 2 of Afro Sport Summit here in Accra, Ghana. My name is John Boafo, and I'll be leading the next conversation this morning on contextualizing digital broadcasting in Africa. Is OTT a realistic, viable, alternative income source? So many of you guys might wonder, what is OTT? Is it food? Is it a new sport? Or maybe it's one of those acronyms that marketers like me use to confuse the rest of the world. OTT is simple. OTT just stands for over the top. Basically, OTT is when content providers deliver media directly straight to the user via the internet without using channels like traditional TV. So when you think of OTT, simply think of platforms like Netflix. To discuss the topic today, we put together a world-class panel, an international panel with a wealth of experience in sports. Ladies and gentlemen, help me welcome the members of our panel today. Our first guest is the CEO of Botswana Football League, Mr. Senzo Mbata. Welcome, welcome. Our second guest doesn't need much introduction in the Ghana sports ecosystem. He's the former CEO of Asante Kotoko, Mr. Nana Yao Aponsa. Our third and final guest traveled all the way from the United States to be here. He almost missed his opportunity to be here, but we're glad that he actually made it, and he's here with us today. He's the Global Diversity and Inclusion Strategist for the African Renaissance and Diaspora Network, Mr. Chris Miles. Welcome, Chris. I think you're supposed to be on this side. All right, welcome, gentlemen. Let's jump straight in. Senzo, you get the first question. So as the CEO of Botswana Football League, how do you perceive the potential for OTT broadcasting in Africa, considering the high internet costs and economic challenges that some of our countries face?
First of all, I think we should commend the strides that technology has seen our sport achieve over the years. You know, unfortunately or fortunately, you know, as we are copying or rather doing what the Europeans or Americans are at advanced in terms of
I think it went up.
just give me a mic. Oh,
Yep.
I'm back. So in Africa, we have a potential of using the OTT as a platform to generate some revenues for our product, in our case, in the league. However, that comes with a lot of challenges because, you know, the internet infrastructure in Africa is not as strong as it is in the other parts of the world. We've got high cost of internet that comes with the this out, please.
Do we have another mic that we can give him? Maybe a handheld mic.
You can give me a mic. So I was saying that this is a very good platform for additional revenue generation for leagues or for clubs or any organization. It doesn't have to be football. However, it has its challenges, as I said to you, issues of the cost of data, accessibility, production costs.
Here you go.
Thank you. As I was saying that, the advantages that I spoke about, the cost of data, infrastructure in our stadia. For OTT to work, it needs a certain infrastructure for it to be able to work at optimal. But looking at the positives, there are a number of technologies which are out there that can assist clubs and especially the leagues, especially when you have a collective contract where your broadcast, it's a shared sort of a split. You split the revenue amongst all your clubs that are playing in the league. So there are a lot of opportunities that one can explore. But as I said, it needs a lot of thorough planning and understanding the environment you're operating in.
Yep. Thank you for your answer. We'll go over to you, Nana Yao. Like I mentioned earlier, you're the former CEO of Asante Kotoko. You were the CEO when the team launched Kotoko TV in 2020 in partnership with the OTT platform Seek. How does a club in Africa ensure that OTT content appeals to fans across age groups and demographics?
Thank you very much. First and foremost, in every sport or every event, you need to understand that the number of people within the arena are not your full followership. That there are several other people interested in the event who need to catch a glimpse of the event without necessarily being in the arena. If you take Accra Sports Stadium just behind us, the total capacity is about 40,000. So you can imagine that if a team like House of Folk is playing at Accra Sports Stadium and they have a following of about 5 million, you can only get a small percentage to access the game. How do the others who are not able to get into the arena access the event? And the only means is through the OTT channels. However, you should be able to monetize the OTT channels to be able to create that viable revenue source. There can never be a time where a team or any event is able to get all the interested participants into one arena. I think the biggest football stadium in the world is a capacity of about 100,000. I have been to a game in Morocco where a team like Raja Casablanca had the stadium filled to capacity, and the fans behind the stadium were more than those in the stadium. But they could not watch the game. They could only sing and, interchange tunes with those in the stadium. However, if you are able to create an avenue where even fans outside the jurisdiction of the event venue can access the event, then that is a better way of monetizing your product. For instance, if somebody is going to come to the Accra Sports Stadium, pay for transportation, come all the way from a venue that is far and spend, let's say, a total of $10 to get to a game. And the same person can say, okay, I'm going to have access to the game. Instead of coming all the way from Takoradi or Cape Coast to Accra, I can pay $2.50 to access the game. They will choose that alternative. I remember when we signed up to Seek, the idea was that if we were able to get even 50,000 of our fans in the diaspora, for instance, who are not able to come to Ghana to watch our games, but of course, we did not have rights to the Premier League, which had already been given to a rights holder. But our Champions League games, the prelim stages where we had the rights, if we could get 50,000 people, or let's say 100,000 people outside to watch the game on Seek and pay $2.50 per game, then you'll be getting about $250,000 for just one game, which was far more than we were getting the entire season for being part of a Premier League. For instance, if you ask any Premier League club currently how much are they making from the TV rights. It's about $30,000 per season. However, a club like House of Focus and Tikotoko could make that in just a single game if they had rights to, access, or monetize these games through the OT. Of course, it's a broader conversation when you have other clubs involved. However, we also focused on behind the scenes. Like you can see now, teams like Tottenham, Man U, and the rest, some of them are signing up to Amazon Prime, etc., to be able to monetize their behind the scenes footages. And so it is a viable way of making money, but to bridge the gap between those we call born before computer and the current generation, you should be able to market it and make it easy to access. Because some of the challenges we had initially with SEEK was the fact that some people did not know how to navigate around the platform. And we had to ensure constant education to make sure that people could access it easily. Thank you very much.
Thanks for giving us your experience with SEEK. Let's go back to you, Senzo. This morning you mentioned the fascinating discussion we had yesterday about fan engagement. My question to you is, what strategies do you think African sports teams and leagues can use to leverage OTT as a viable platform to reach and engage the fans?
It's a very loaded question, if you think about it. I think my audience will agree with me. We're still grappling with the understanding of the OTT itself. How do we access it? What platforms are there for it? How do we ensure that legally we are protected? How do we ensure that we don't infringe on people's rights? Just before I answer your question, my colleague on the left spoke about the rights that have already been sold to the main broadcaster for all the 16, 18 clubs in Ghana. What we did I've been in Botswana now for almost 5 months. We're starting a new season. What we did, we went back to the broadcaster and said, please, we ask that you rescind certain rights that we've already sold to you. Because, these broadcasters are very smart. They will buy everything that is digital, whether it's on satellite or anything. They will buy everything at once and give you one lump sum. But we've asked them to give us back those rights. So now we've got the rights. Now we can resell these rights as a digital rights. Now I will have a digital partner that's going to broadcast my matches as from next season. So you talk about how do we ensure that we engage our fans. If you go to the app now, for instance, the Vision View app for our Premier League, so the app will allow us to be able to interact with whomever is watching our matches. So we are able to interact with them. We are able to ask them to predict the score. We are able to ask them to predict the goal scorers. So in that way, you are forcing them to engage with you in that aspect. So that's where things like your advertisers, your betting companies, they come into the fray, because now they see the traffic and the engagement that is happening between yourself and your fans. Not only your fans, remember that I said earlier on, it's not only your fans that are interacting with your product. Anyone that is a customer that is consuming that particular content becomes your fan, so to speak. So the engagement is something that is really at the back end of the content that you are driving to your people. So there are so many avenues and technologies that one can use at the back of the OTT to ensure that you are able to engage with your fans. And the most obvious one is the advertisers. If you've signed a very good deal with betting companies or one betting company, and then they are partner in this platform, that's money on its own. So there are so many that one can think of or put forward. But the most obvious one is that having an ability to interact with somebody that is sitting on a second screen on the other side, it allows you an opportunity to engage with them.
Fantastic. Thank you for your answer. Chris, we're coming all the way up to you. In your market, where you're coming from, you mentioned earlier that they're a little bit ahead compared to some of compared to our region in terms of OTT engagement and having various platforms over there. So my question to you is, what lessons can African sports teams learn from the successful broadcasting ventures in other regions, be it in the States or even other regions which have similar economic challenges that we do have in Africa?
Yeah, thank you. A great question. I represent the African Renaissance and Diaspora Network, and it's a consortium of organizations whose responsibility is to amplify the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. And so we have to create unique platforms and activations that can get out to the masses on a global scale. To your point in regards to sport, it's a very simple process. What OTT, over-the-top television, provides is access and availability. It allows anyone to be a creator or an influencer. And so you sitting in the audience today, loving football, I believe the gentleman up earlier talked about how there's only one or two former players who have now been placed on television. What this does in the States, for example, NBA players, if you go to YouTube, former NBA players, they're all over YouTube, TikTok, they utilize these platforms as access or entry points into you. Because of YouTube has a financial mechanism where you can make money by being an influencer, this allows you the privilege of becoming an economic resource to that entity. So if it's your sporting organization, your institute, or your business that you work for, this allows you the privilege of making money. So what I'd encourage anyone out there to do, whether you're in business, whether you're an athlete, whether you're a professional sports league, is to leverage your asset. We talked, Sinzo, you talked about branding. It's important for teams to brand their players. This is a way for teams to brand themselves, players to brand themselves. It allows you the ability to create the narrative. You get to control the narrative. Typically in leagues and teams, they'll control your narrative. They'll allow you to say so much. They'll allow you to do so much. But as an individual, as an influencer, creating your own platform, this gives you your own voice, creating your own narrative. So utilizing that, honestly, is where you're able to create something more unique than the stereotypical athlete that just says everything politically correct. This gives them, her, a platform to speak openly, and that may be what engages the common fan or the common person to acknowledge them and want to be active. And then you can just monetize that.
And then, Yao, earlier you were talking about your experience working as the CEO of Asante Kotoko, and you mentioned the fact that at the launch of Kotoko TV, one of the reasons why you guys launched that was also to be able to reach out to your diasporan fans. How do you tackle the challenge of sometimes low disposable income of more of the local fans as potential subscribers for these OTT platforms, while also being able to offer compelling content on your OTT platform? Because producing good content also it comes at a cost.
Sure, thank you very much. Basically, two of the key means of generating revenue from OTT is either through the usual pay-per-view or free distribution but advertising, monetizing the advertising side of things. So, for instance, we had a sponsor who was interested, who felt that initially the sponsor did not understand that we did not have the rights to the Premier League games. So the sponsor felt that if we were going to, it was possible to broadcast all our Premier League games on our own channels or YouTube channels, then the sponsor was willing to pay a lot more to advertise on our channels instead of going to traditional television. So if the entire digital rights were not given to one entity, then we would have had the opportunity to say, okay, we want all our fans to be able to watch our games free on a particular OTT channel. However, we can have the data to be able to convince the sponsor that this particular game, we had 500,000 people watching it. And therefore, if you pay a certain amount, you can advertise during the games to these individuals. That way, the low-income people are not paying for it, but they are giving you the data that you can monetize, because data is money. If there is a sponsor who acknowledges that, okay, when it's pay-per-view, you have just 50,000 people watching, but when it's free, you have 500,000 people watching, then the sponsor will be willing to offset that cost and give you money because they want the data to be able to sell their product. So that is how you balance it.
All right. Back to you, Senzo. My question is, how can, well, so earlier you mentioned the fact that you had to have conversations with some of the broadcasters to be able to get, so they can resend some of the rights that they had before. What's the conversation that we need to have also with African governments and organizations to support the growth of OTT broadcasting for sports content, in the region?
I think that we cannot run away from the fact that the government broadcasters still have an upper hand in terms of how broadcast is done, especially when it is football. There's this element that they always say that football is a national sport, is a nation sport. So it means that we cannot only ring-fence it to the private broadcasters. So there must be certain content that must go to the public broadcaster. What I think the discussion that we should be having is that how do we found collaborations? By allowing the private players in the space to come into the space and enhancing whatever we're having. Let's be honest to each other. I mean, the product that you get from the broadcaster as a government broadcaster vis-a-vis the private broadcaster, those are two different products that you get out there. I think all of us agree here, whether we're a club or we are a federation of athletics or we're in a federation of volleyball, you want to, when somebody's sitting in front of the TV or in front of the second screen or on your app, when you're watching a content, it must be as clear as possible. It must be eye-catching. Whoever is paying money on that particular advertisement, it must be something that is appealing. The aesthetics must be proper. I mean, I'm not digressing, but if you look at the product that we receive from the EPL, it's nothing more than the work that has been done to ensure that the product that goes out there attracts you to come and watch that particular match. So I think we should start having those discussions and say, you have your limitations in terms of the broadcast. How do you ensure that we work together to ensure that the quality of the production is at a level whereby all of us can benefit as a broadcaster, as a club, or as an advertiser going forward, you know. And I must say that today we talk about this topic of OTT as a topic that is easy to do. We must be honest that there's a great deal of work that needs to be done around the infrastructure, about around the strength of the internet itself, you know, the reach. You know, can you really broadcast and somebody in the remote areas, can they access that particular content? So for me, it's sitting around the table and agreeing how best do we ensure that everybody benefits from it. Because if we do that, we can cover more than what we've agreed on the contracts. As an example, the Botswana TV would say to me that I will broadcast 60 matches per year. For your matches, but if I bring in a private partner who can assist with the OTT and production, that means we can do 160 matches per season. So everybody benefits because now there's more matches on TV. That means the broadcaster has got leverage of showing even those matches through their channels. So you're quite right by saying that we need to have a discussion with stakeholders that are playing in the sport. From the CEO, former CEO Asante Kotoko was saying that, you know, there's also distribution of monies. Because, you know, when we are 18 teams in the league, you cannot be getting more money like it happens in Europe, where Manchester would not be paid the same as Arsenal in terms of the broadcast rights and things like that. But unfortunately, we are here where we are. We have to find ways of ensuring that we augment those incomes by having things like OTT, ITV, so that we are able to diversify our income. Yes, you're right. There needs to be a discussion, and we see how we can better manage our situation in Africa.
Senzo, you bring up a very good point about the collaboration with other clubs. And Chris, I wanted to ask you a question on that. What do you see the role of partnerships between various African teams to ensure that the OTT platforms are successful? How do you see them partnering together, working together, so they can make it successful?
You know, that's an interesting question, but more importantly, it's almost more of a, for lack of a better term, a more political question, because you have to have all those teams willing to embrace that platform, right? So for me, I look at OTT as individualism. I look at it as an entrepreneur platform. As we just stated, you know, if you do a on-demand game, you can have 50,000 in the stands, you can have 50,000 online, but then the game is over, so you secured 100,000 viewers, right? But at the end of the day, everyone wants to know the backstory. Everyone wants to know what the player did, what he said. That's why they have press rooms to go and see what the media is able to drum out and pull out of these athletes. I don't know if it's an easy solution for a team or a league to really come together and collaborate to be better, in my opinion. It's unique in this sense. In the States, for example, we have so many different sporting opportunities to watch, from the NFL to Major League Baseball to NBA to the MLS to IHL to NHL. We talked about hockey, and hockey's not prevalent over here. But the fact of the matter is these leagues monopolize the networks, and we have opportunities for monopolization for the networks. For me, I look at this as a golden opportunity for leagues and teams to become individuals, utilize OTT as an entrepreneurship business plan to make themselves as big and as marketable as possible. And so this is what I feel OTT has done. OTT has opened up the market so that networks cannot monopolize the broadcast industry. I think it's important for people to realize that internet is difficult here on the continent, but yet data is readily available. So if you make your platform accessible via digital, I think you have more users. I mean, if you look at how many smartphone users are available on the world stage, that opens up a whole plethora of opportunity for economic empowerment. That's how I look at it from a broadcast standpoint. That puts the pressure on the networks. When you have 500,000 to 1 million people watching an OTT snippet of 3 minutes, 5 minutes, or 15 minutes, that advertiser is going to go there. They're not going to go to a broadcaster who just promotes that they have so much viewership. You can see exactly what the viewership is off of a video. So for me, again, to answer the direct question, I think it's more of a political sense that these organizations have to come together to realize that, is it worth us collaborating to make this platform a monetized platform for us, and what does that look like? Or do we individualize ourselves and maintain our own personal identity by promoting what we aspire to be? And that, to me, is a better proposition. In my opinion, it's a better proposition for the teams within that league.
So now, yeah, let's fast forward 5-10 years into the future, and all the Ghana Premier League teams have their own OTT broadcasting. How does a team then, or even now, stand out compared to the rest of the teams in terms of the kinds of content that they make and the strategy that they put in place to be able to stand out versus the other teams?
First of all, I think that it would be important for the authorities or the powers that be, either the league or the federation, to sit with these clubs, first and foremost, to structure the broadcast deals in a way that it favors both the federation, the broadcaster, and the clubs themselves. Because you can give the traditional broadcasting rights to a single entity, but you can also allow the clubs to sell their own digital broadcasting rights. Because, for instance, you may think that, okay, let's take Ghana Premier League, for instance, Asante Kotoko and House of Folk may have the big chunk of it in terms of sales, but each club will play House of Folk twice in a season,